Well, welcome to the Burn Up Podcast. I'm Adam Nugent, your host. I'm honored to have a friend here today, Curtis Marsh, who's the president of
Capital Growth Management.
Capital Growth Management. He's a TEDx speaker with the whole premise of rising above the chaos. We're going to get into Curtis's story. It's phenomenal. You know, many people, especially men, we suffer with addictions, and addictions can get the best of us. You know, my belief is, much of addiction is rooted in avoidance. And there's different people that say it's, self-love or self-worth and different things. But, I've had my own battles with addictive things, going through some pretty traumatic times, you and I have chatted about.
Right.
And this has been a big thing for you. You've helped other, people through this. And let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely.
Curtis.
Let's go.
Well, first of all, welcome for being
here.
Let's
go. Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. It's good to see you again. You look great.
You as well. Thank you, my friend.
You look great.
So talk about it. Where did this all start? What happened?
Well, being born and raised here in the state of Utah, I had a great family, no doubt about it. The influence of some religious beliefs and being the oldest of four. I don't blame anybody for this, but sometimes that was a lot of pressure. Being the oldest, living up to the Marsh name and the reputation that my family had. And I look back, I didn't think about it then, but as I look back, it was a lot of pressure for me, and I wanted that extrinsic validation from family and friends, and hey, am I doing the right things? And I felt that I had to be perfect, and that is a double-edged sword, as you know. We've both been in the same business.
100%. I literally was just prior to recording this, I was having lunch with my dad. And he was bringing up some different things. And I was even thinking while I was sitting there, just like how much of my worth and, wanting to always placate and please my dad, I didn't want to be disappointed in him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And no fault of our fathers. I mean, were you the firstborn too?
I'm the oldest too.
Are you really? Okay. Yeah. So you get where I'm coming from. And so there was a lot of times where, Dad, was that good enough? I remember in sports, I'd look over and try to get his validation and making sure that it was good enough. And over the years, you don't think about it as a child, but there was time in my life. I was 23 years old, and I got into the investment business. I was the youngest financial consultant ever hired by Shearson Lehman Brothers, which was the 900-pound gorilla on Wall Street. And that hiring actually came because me and my dad were in business together. And we kind of got in a little scuffle one day about pay and development of these companies that we were doing. And I said, Dad, I can't continue to work here for that. And he said, good, you won't amount to anything without me. And that propelled me to go talk to Shearson, and I got hired. Now, I want to say I have a great relationship with my father. He's 87. He's an amazing man. He's been there with me through thick and thin. But you're a parent. I'm a parent. He didn't have a manual. When he said that, he didn't mean it in a derogatory way, but it
probably didn't come off that way though.
Right. It was a stimulus for me to say, I'll show you, and we've both probably been.
Well, it's interesting. We have that in common as well, because I worked with my father. My father brought me in originally into the investment insurance business. And so, honestly, almost the opposite of that, because one of the things with my father, we put our parents on pedestals.
Yeah.
Superman,
as we should,
and like nothing wrong. He knows everything, mom or dad. And then it's interesting. My dad had some deep insecurities about me working with him. And he said to me, he goes, you're going to see another side of me that I don't know if I'm comfortable with you seeing, which was interesting. Like, again, generationally being vulnerable and open. And he was right. I got to see, my dad that's at home in this like confident, he's the man of the house, right? And then in the business world, in the insurance and sales world, right? And it's interesting, like, then the insecurities come up and what he's scared of and like the challenges he faces with. There was this whole other side, the relationship that I developed with my father that frankly, I'm the oldest of four boys, and like that my brothers didn't experience or see. So we all have very different experiences with my dad, but working with families can be incredible blessings, can be also incredibly challenging.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So I started with Shearson Lehman Brothers downtown Salt Lake City. I was 23 years old, and I remember the first year I made $80,000, and that was in 1986. And I don't say that to boast. I just remember at that point in my life, I kind of took I looked up and I'm spiritual. I still am. And I looked up and I said, hey, God, this is all about me. The ego started to take over. And I just made $80,000. I kissed both my biceps and it was off to the races. I started making more money than I would have ever imagined in my life. And
Yeah, you felt unstoppable.
yeah. And when you start to live your life from ego and greed, it doesn't really work out that well, you know? And so I became misaligned with who Curtis Marsh was, how Curtis Marsh was raised, what my beliefs were, my family values, my personal values. And slowly you get off track. And I tell kids today when I speak to them, it's like those little breadcrumbs into the forest where Hansel and Gretel followed them. And they're slight little choices that then become habits that slowly take you out of alignment. And pretty soon you're not in alignment with who you are. You're off that compass. You're out of alignment.
So can I ask you a question on this? I love that
absolutely.
you're using this word,
Yeah.
because I use this word a lot with the men that I work with, is like, and one of the most important things for me today as a man is being in alignment.
Right.
So I use that word a lot.
Right.
And I'm curious from your perspective on this. You know, your alignment can be different than my alignment, can
Sure.
be different than other people's alignments,
Sure.
right? It's what is alignment for you? What does that specifically mean to you?
Well, for me, I think it's my beliefs, my family beliefs, my religious beliefs. I believe in God and Jesus Christ and the values and teachings that come from that connection. Family, and you know, just how I was raised and that alignment.
Maybe your moral compass.
Moral compass, there's the word.
Yeah.
And so when you get out of alignment with that, there's several things that happen. It's like a car, you know, your car's out of alignment and you're fighting that thing to get back. You can just let it take you wherever you want or wherever it will. And if you're true to yourself and you're true to those beliefs and those values and that alignment, I tell people it was like every choice that I made that took me out of alignment was like putting a hot rock in a backpack that I carried around.
Yeah, and again, your analogy, it's the little thing. So first, it's a pebble,
Yeah.
you know, and then it's another pebble,
Yeah.
and then it's all of a sudden it's a boulder, and it becomes so heavy you don't even realize
Right.
it until something drastic or painful or
Right.
happens.
And for me, some of the things that occurred in my life that took me out of alignment. Some people say that is so small, that's nothing. But my alignment was, you know, when you have certain alignment and you start to veer off from that, the best thing to do is do the next right thing and get back in. But I got so far off track, and that's what led to my addiction. So the
addiction led because you realized maybe subconsciously, maybe not even consciously, that you're out of alignment and not wanting to face the pain, if you will, or the truth, your truth, that you're out of alignment. You then turn to substance or whatever it was.
Yeah. For me, it was alcohol. And, you know, I worked for a lot of major Wall Street firms, and that lifestyle, as you know, can get pretty fast, pretty crazy, and greed, ego, all those things. But I had this pain inside. And the pain was caused by being out of alignment. So, yes, I was covering up that pain of being out of alignment with another choice. That choice was not a great choice. It took me even farther out of alignment. And the further you go, the more pain that's created internally. And maybe some people saw it. They saw a wealthy young man. I was 43 when I retired. I had everything in the world, but I had no inner peace because I'd collected these hot rocks and these choices along the way that took me off of my moral compass, took me out of alignment, And here I was in so much internal pain. You didn't see it. I mean, you saw the cars and the boats and the Harleys and all that stuff that people attach to worldly success, but deep inside.
And were you attaching your worth to all of those things as well?
Yeah, you do. I mean, we talked about
yeah.
that before this podcast. That extrinsic validation I was getting from, hey, look at all my stuff, but don't really look at me, because this is me. All of this is what I've created. So therefore, that's my worth. But my true worth, my true self-worth was destroyed. And that's what you couldn't see. That's what's deep inside the heart and the spirit of the human soul.
During that time, that season of your life, were you open about how you were feeling with anybody? Were you sharing this with anyone close in your life, as far as like, again, there's this facade that we put in. Trust me, I've done that, been there. And yet, but we're broken and dead inside, And when I was in, the crux of that, I would open up a little bit. Well, really originally, when I kind of started my own self-healing journey, like 10 plus years ago, I was married at the time, and, I finally got like, this isn't working. I gotta flip the mirror at me. And, my brother had gone through a divorce, and he recommended this therapist. And, prior to that, for me sharing or talking about my feelings, like, oh, hell no, I don't have any problems.
Right.
So I called her, and she goes, well, why do you want to come in? And I quote, I'm like, I need to figure my shit out. And she goes, well, let's figure it out. And then all of a sudden I just started to open up, and my gosh, this is actually really freeing. This is really healing. And all this pent up emotion and feelings that I've never let go, because again, society, men, we can't share our feelings. We can't show this side. We definitely can't show a vulnerable side, because when we're weak,
right.
And all of a sudden I created this safe place with this beautiful, counselor, this woman that just became my safe haven. Like, I get to just be me, and I love that you're sharing this. And this is one of the main things that I really wanted to come across on this podcast as we dig deeper into this, is like, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to share the challenges, the fear, when you actually reached out to me originally, when we first met, when I posted about, losing my investment firm and going through everything that went through the SEC and being suicidal.
Right.
And I was scared to death to be that open and vulnerable online. And I was expecting to get lambasted by all sorts of different people. And it was literally hundreds of messages of empathy, of concern, of love. But the biggest surprise to me, and I'm reading these and tears are streaming down my face, was how many men reached out to me, DM me, sent message, you saved my life today. Thanks for being brave.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. I had a gentleman call me. I tried to buy his company 10 years previously. He's like, I saw your post. And I'm like, oh. And he goes, I got to share my story. He got out of his career, lost his identity, nearly took his own life. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute. There's something to be said about being open. There's something to be said about you and I, two grown men here, sharing our trials, tribulations, our mistakes, our whatever you want to call it. And choices. Great. Perfect word.
I don't label them just because.
No, I actually like that. Because I don't want to label it.
Yeah.
So I like
everybody
that.
says, man, you made a lot of bad choices. No, I made choices. Those choices had negative consequences, not blessings attached to them. And we'll get into that. But if I label them, what happens? I start to feel guilt and shame, and that was part of growing up. That's a bad choice. If you make that choice, so that guilt and shame that we can put on ourselves very easily. So you can use your choice of words, but I don't.
No, actually, words matter to me. Yeah. So I'm going to steal that, and I'll put in small parentheses, trademarked by Curtis Marsh. But no, it's choices I made.
Yeah, they're choices. They went in my backpack.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. So, because people, I'm sure they've said it to you. Man, you made so many. I'm sorry that you went through what you did. I'm sorry that you made those bad choices. No, those choices have got me here today and where I'm at in my life, married to a beautiful woman. I've got great kids. I've got inner peace. I have less than I had material wise, but I have more.
But it's interesting, people have said that. The other thing that's been interesting, and I used to be one of these guys. The one I heard a lot, I was like, well, I never would have done that. If I were in your shoes, I wouldn't have done this. And it's interesting because it's a ripple effect. So it's not just one decision and then something happens. It's a combination or accumulation of multiple decisions that sometimes are over
Yeah.
weeks, months, years that just
Right.
build up. And it's like, well, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I'm that guy, and one of the most beautiful things about going through trials and tribulations or whatever it happens to be, and then coming on the other side of it, is you get wisdom. But you also, I think the greatest thing that I've received going through everything I've gone through is empathy.
Yeah.
For other people going through things.
Absolutely.
I feel like, I've felt this.
That's why I reached out to you that day.
So,
I saw you on social media. I remember that post. When you started
Yeah.
talking about it, I had chills go through my whole body. I remember you sitting there, and I didn't mean to take you off.
no,
that
you're not taking
point,
me off
but-
at all. No, this is just a convo. But
yeah.
But I feel like I excuse me, I'm the least judgmental I've ever been.
Right.
Whenever I hear, hey, I heard so and so did this, or can you believe what? And my original take would have been like, oh wow, really? Now it's like there's got to be more to the story. We don't know it all. Something like what led them to that. Like I want to know more from that perspective to be more curious and be understanding and connect with them empathetically. Right.
Absolutely.
Versus just judge, pointing fingers. Right. That was one of the most challenging things for me. And I get why people feel the way they do, but nevertheless, there's a lot more context to everything. I think.
Oh
In
yeah,
life.
yeah. And there will always be those who will hold and reserve that judgment against you. There will be those who, say, way to rise above or way to burn up from the ashes and make something of yourself. But I don't try to attach myself to those opinions or outcomes. My opinion I have of myself is from inside now, and it's not exterior, extrinsic validation. I've done a lot of intrinsic work, and
Would you say you still care what other people think or their opinion, but not more than what you think about yourself? Or are you in a space where like I really don't care what other people think?
it takes a while to get there.
It does. No, it does.
I won't lie. I'm not going to lie to you. There's still a few people that have some negative opinion of what I experienced, and I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt me, because some of it's family, and you try real hard, but we're human beings, right?
Yeah, and I think if anyone is in a headspace that they truly don't care what anyone thinks, like categorically, they're raging narcissists. Like, I think it's human nature. You care. It's like it's how we attach to it, and attach their opinions. And then if we attach our worth to other people, that's where you get into trouble.
Right.
And to me, it's like I'm in a season today. This literally just happened last week. I was at an event, and somebody said something to someone that got back to me, and they said was about what I'd gone through, and they're like, how does that feel to hear that? And I'm like, today, on a scale of 0 to 10, I had like a 0.25 reaction. It's like, I don't like it, but I'm like,
Right,
but at the end of the day, it's like, it is what it is. Had I heard that a year ago, it might have been a 5 or 7. 2 years ago, it would have been a 12.
Called them up and let them have it.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Just, I would have just internalized it and like beat myself up and and like, so you're right. What you said is important. It's like, it takes work, it takes intentional work. And it's really understanding that like, we are worthy, of who we are, independent of anyone's opinions, independent of what we've done or not done, how much money we make or not make. So I love that you say that, because that is something that I think a lot of the reasons men especially don't take the risks or don't lean into doing certain things because it's fear of other people's opinions, it's fear of failure.
Right.
What are people going to think? Right. And you've probably seen these videos that like they'll ask like these 80 and 90-year-old plus people, like, what in life. And many times it's like the regret is not taking the risk.
Yeah.
It's not, trying this and it versus, oh, I failed.
Right.
Right. So, yeah.
No, you're spot on. And it does. It takes work. It takes a lot of work to get there.
So you're making all this money, like, but you're completely out of alignment.
No, very much so.
And validation, worth tied to all the toys and everything that you have. So what happened?
So I got to a point where this backpack of hot rocks or shit, whatever you want to call it, turds, I was collecting just became so heavy. And during that time of collection of those choices that were taking me out of alignment, I was married. I had 2 beautiful daughters and all the worldly possessions I could possibly want. And a lot of that, again, was to don't look at me because you'll see this broken dude, you know. If you look close enough, look at everything else. And I actually hung up my cleats from the investment business and kind of retired in 2006. And I said, I got to keep my family together. You know, I was traveling a lot. I was doing a lot of things. You asked me if I shared any of this with anybody. No, it was hidden. You know, and yeah, this even makes it worse because then you got these rocks and you hiding these hot rocks. You're hiding these choices. You're hiding this misalignment, and you're putting on this face, and people see everything around you and go, man, he's got it all together. People used to say, hey, you seem like you're not really happy. And I'd say, why do you say that? And I said, well, you just don't seem happy inside. And I said, well, keep talking. And they would say, you've got all of this stuff, a house, boats, cars, motorcycles, you know, you name it, property. Why aren't you happy? And I said, I'll tell you what. I'll just use you in this example. I'd say, Adam, I'll tell you what. You know where I live. Come over to my house on Saturday, and what we'll do is we'll open the garage door, and I had this big Harley safe, this black Harley Davidson safe in the corner of my garage, and inside there was a bunch of titles to boats and possessions. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to that safe. I'll open it up, and you'll get to choose one of those titles. I'm going to give it to you. So you can have anything that you want. If you want to go down to some storage units and look at some stuff. This sounds boastful as I repeat it, but it was. You'll see the point that I was trying to prove here in just a second. So good. You come over to my house. We go back and we dial the combination on the safe. We open it up, and you're looking around. And you're saying, "I'll take the." Road King Classic, the Pearl White Road King Harley Davidson Classic. Reach in to grab the title, and I go to hand it to you, and I pull it back, and I say, I only want one thing. And this is what was missing in my life. And this was the point where I started to surrender. I started to quit fighting that internal strife. And I'd go to hand it back to you. I'd say, Adam, I want one thing. And you say, what is it? It's not money. Inner peace. And you'd look at me like you're looking at me now, and you'd just say, I can't give you inner peace. Exactly. To me, there's only one author of inner peace. And I had to find that. I had to surrender. I had to make myself available to getting back in alignment. And I needed to do that, in my case, with, first of all, commitment. Commitment to change. That's, first of all, if you're not 100% committed to change, it's not going to happen. I've worked with so many people that they're like, yeah, I want to change. Well, on a scale, you know, are you 100% in? Well, I'm like 98. It ain't going to work. You know that in your business.
No, well, in life.
Yeah,
you know,
life.
It's until the pain of our current situation exceeds the pain of change.
Exactly.
People don't change.
Exactly.
I've had this major, losing over 125 pounds in this weight loss transformation. And when I was 350 pounds, I was miserable. And if I could go back and have a conversation with that guy the day before I hit rock bottom, I'd look at him and say, you don't want it bad enough. And me at that time, like, no, I do. But the truth was, like, I didn't. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of rupture, of failure, of financial loss, heartbreak, all these different catalysts that bring you to your knees.
Right.
It's your rise above the chaos takes you literally to your knees, and you get to the point to where it's like, uncle, give up, whether it's praying to God, whatever. And it's like, you get to a place where it's like, what I'm doing is not working and I need to change.
Yeah.
And you're right. Once the switch is there, and of course it requires action, but you know this and I know this. And how many people do we know that like, oh, I want it. Like I just launched, like I'm working with men now. So men that in the fitness space, because of my own transformation. And I'm focusing, working on 40-year-old business executives, business owners that have at least 40 pounds to lose, because I know that world really well. So I put this announcement out, and within 24 hours, I had 20 guys sign up, and everybody's all, of course they want to do it, New Year's, everything. But then when it came time to actually getting started, people started to drop off.
Right.
So it's one thing to want it. It's another thing to actually do something about it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, and we all have those walls of resistance. We know what's on the other side of surrender, but there's walls of resistance. And what are people going to think of me? And see, I hid it for a long time because I didn't. I thought if I tell my wife, she's going to divorce me, and so I became kind of a. Well, I'm not going to say kind of. I became a jerk and wanted her to leave me so I wouldn't have to tell her the choices that I had made.
Were you consciously being a jerk? Were
Yeah.
you actually like you were literally thinking I'm going to be a jerk?
I hate to say it, but let's be real. I was like, please leave me. The pain is so great. I don't want to tell you. And it was I had an experience. I'd retired from Janus Capital in 2006, and I'm sitting there going, you have a lot of time on your hands to think, and I kind of got away from that crazy lifestyle. It's a blessed lifestyle, don't get me wrong, but it just put me sometimes in the wrong places, and I wasn't strong enough to continue to make aligned decisions. And I said, I've got to make some changes. I can't carry this weight any longer. And so we as men sometimes think that surrender is weak, but it's the greatest strength that you can give yourself, because when you hit a point of full surrender, anything is possible.
See, my definition of surrender is it's when we finally accept. We accept what is. We accept that side of us. We accept the position, whatever we're in, and then we can still not like it, but if we accept it, it loses its power.
Correct.
Right? So
Yeah.
it is a superpower.
It's a superpower. It sounds like a weakness, but I surrendered, and I started to take those steps.
Of taking accountability.
Taking ownership, personal responsibility, instead of living in the blame, shame, and entitlement space, because nothing grows there. There's a line in life. Below that's blame, shame, and entitlement. Above it's personal accountability, personal responsibility, and ownership. And when we live there, that's where our life starts to shift for all the betterment in the world, all the greatest blessings. Down below that line, I'll give you 2 hours. Tell me what grows there. Nothing.
So I haven't shared this with many people, but I'm going to do it here. Might get me in trouble
Let's do
for
it.
this, but
Let's do it.
this is my belief today. The universe, God, however you see it. If you take two people, say two men, right? And in this assumption, we'll assume that they're on the exact same parallel path, doing whatever. They're living the same life. Everything's the exact same. And one of the men happens to get out of alignment, out of integrity, falls off the path, if you will, right? This guy still stays the same.
Right.
But if this guy, once he gets on the path and he all of a sudden surrenders, takes accountability, takes radical ownership, radical accountability, owning every part of it, I believe from a divine, because that is so challenging. I think most people cannot face themselves.
Yeah.
Like it is the most, the hardest person we have ever faced, currently face, or will ever face is ourselves.
Yourself in the mirror.
So I believe from a heavenly spiritual perspective, whatever you believe, the guy, man or woman, however, it doesn't matter, comparing to someone that isn't out of alignment, but actually takes radical accountability, is actually rewarded and blessed even more so because they took the risk, they took the challenge, they surrendered to whatever the consequences were as a result of them being out of alignment. From a spiritual, universal blessings perspective, I think that person is actually rewarded more than the other person that hasn't.
100%.
Okay.
Surrender is opening yourself up. It's like a giant funnel. And you've probably seen on Facebook, I speak about rising above the chaos that I created in my own life. And chaos comes into our life by choices, or it comes into our life just because life is there for us. And chaos sometimes happens so that we can grow. But I'm raising up like this, and people have coined it my rise above pose, and it's like a funnel. That's surrender. I'm surrendering to. And you open yourself up to that higher power, whatever it is. And that's where the growth happens. Had I not surrendered and just continued to fight this, I probably wouldn't be alive today. But I started that surrender process. I started I'm committed to changing. And I had some help committing because 2006, I retired. I thought, well, I'm going to try to put my family back together again. I had 2 young, beautiful daughters, beautiful wife, beautiful home. January of 2008, I find myself in divorce court. And after 2 days of trial, I thought I had surrendered, but I found out there was a deeper spot to go.
Yeah, right when you think you're there, God's going to be like, "Oh no, you're not. Let me show you."
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so I went straight from and all this is in a TED talk that I gave called "Rise Above the Chaos." But I went straight from 2 days of court, where I was still arrogant, cocky, ego-driven man. I went straight from that courtroom to 30 days in jail for contempt. And the judge was not happy with me and how I acted in that courtroom and stuff. And I look back and I'm embarrassed by it, but it was who I was then, and I don't beat myself up over it. So I spent the next 30 days in jail. And I remember shouting, "I got money, I'll bail. I know people." None of that works, okay? So I did. I spent 30 days. And that was the worst, best 30 days of my life. People say, how can that be? How can it be the worst and the best? Well, I'll challenge you to look at the worst times that you have in your life. And from that, okay, from chaos comes new beginnings. You have to allow that to happen. You have to say, okay, I'm going through this, I'm experiencing it. What is it going to bring me? How do I rise above this? And what good is going to come from it? Because from chaos does come new beginnings, if you allow it. If you continue to fight it and all that good stuff. So I get out of jail and I'm like, okay, that was God's message to me. Hey, buddy, slow down a bit. I got something I need to talk to you. And man, I'll tell you what, 30 days where you're just staring at lights that don't go off at night. They dim them a little bit, but you have a lot of time to think. And like the slow process of misalignment, the process isn't immediate to get back in alignment. And that, again, was a pivotal moment for me. That was 2008. Anger, I still had some things that as I came out of that experience. 2010, January 1st, 2010, I quit drinking. I quit burying that pain. And I said, damn it, I'm going to take care of it. Not with a vodka, not with Xanax, not with anything else. I am going to take care of it from the inside out. And sorry, I still get emotional. And I surrendered. And I remember as I was preparing my TEDx Riverton talk, the first person that I practiced it on was my oldest daughter. And again, we go back to these secrets. You've had them, I've had them.
Everybody has
them, right?
Let's be clear. Everybody does.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Everybody does. And it's once we get those out, and I bring my daughter, I invite her into my office, and I sat her down and I thought, because my talk gets into 18 minutes of more detail of my rise and my fall and my rise above again. And then I give an antidote for how I rose above. And I use the word chaos. C is for commitment. H is higher power. And anyway, I sat her down and I thought, I may lose my oldest daughter. She may say, Dad, you did all these things. I took the risk. Sorry, there's certain points in my life where I go back and the emotions are so real.
There is no reason.
But it tells me that I did the right thing. So I sat her down and I went through this talk because I had to narrow it down to 18 minutes. And I shared some things in there. We go back to your original question you asked me that I had never shared with people. These had been secrets. And when I was done, I looked at her. And I share this because I know that there's other men out there. There's other women. But we're talking mostly to men because we're taught to suppress this stuff. Take care of those secrets. Okay? Rise above from where you are. And I said to her, I said, Cheyenne, was that the first time you'd heard those things? And she looked at me, and it seemed like a pause for, 2 hours, but it was probably 2 seconds. She said, some of them, Dad. And Adam, I'll tell you, as a father, she got up out of that chair, and she walked up, and she gave me the tightest embrace that I've ever had from her. And that's full surrender, man. That is unconditional love. That is full surrender. And at that point, and I gave that TEDx talk, TEDx Riverton. We filmed it at the IMAX out there in Riverton. And I remember I couldn't see the audience because of the lights, but I got up there, and it was the first time I'd ever given this speech. And I walked off the stage, and I had this feeling come over me that was just a rush. And it said, if that didn't inspire one soul to change or to rise above from where they are, you are now the freest man in the world. And I was, because I had shared those things that I had carried for so long, man. And those hot rocks get heavy. And, how are we taught to deal with it? Well, continue to bury it, take your own life, drink, do drugs, whatever it is to cover up that pain. And I'm here to tell you that you can rise above without doing those things and get rid of the constant need to bury it and be extrinsically validated and go inside and make your life the greatest peaceful place for you to grow and now move on to the next, as you call it, the next season.
Thank you, by the way, for sharing that. Powerful.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Powerful. The thing that hits me the most because of my own experience in secrets and hiding and not sharing everything, right? What are people going to think? I don't want people let down. I don't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
It's freedom.
Oh, man.
It's freedom.
Can you put a price tag on that?
You can, honestly, you can't. And truth be told, the number one thing in my life today is my personal integrity.
Yeah.
And so much so because I've known the other side of that when I've been out of integrity, and I will not go back there. And it is a big core value of who I am. And so much to the degree, like even my oldest son who lives with me here, we have a pact, like this agreement. I'm like, if there's one thing that I say that I don't follow through, I want you to check me.
Oh yeah.
And it could be something as simple as like taking the garbage out. Because again, it could be like, oh, I'll take the garbage out. I don't do it. It's like, it's quote unquote no big deal. But that's one little pebble that just adds up. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't trust you.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be that guy. I want my word to matter. And being truthful is taking accountability. It's owning, but it's just like following through on what you say. But again, all these secrets, when they get out, you might feel like, as I was going through all the things, losing my company, like, my coach who I work with, I mean, he's incredible, but there's no filter. He just speaks. He goes, you'll know you're there when you feel like you're standing naked in front of a stadium of 60,000 people.
Yeah.
And so as we're going through, I'm like, I feel like I'm there. He's like, nah, you still got clothes on. You still got shorts on. Now you're just in your underwear. And it's like, but then when all of it, and it's like, now you're there. So painful, but yet that bag of rocks and in many parts of my life that I was carrying for so long, free.
Oh,
and the beautiful thing is too, it's like, of course someone could hear this or hear that. The nice thing about free is like, you think you know something I haven't shared? I've talked about that. So if someone comes to you and says, well, this or that, I'm like, I know, I've been open about that.
Right.
I've shared that.
Right.
It was in my TEDx talk. I said it on social. Like,
yeah.
And
yeah.
Like, and then it's like, oh, okay. But more than what anyone else thinks, it's the freedom. And my example I gave earlier is, you want to get in the best graces, the good graces, the most blessings that you can possibly get from God, the universe, is frankly tell the truth.
Absolutely.
And they say the truth hurts, but the truth sets you free. Literally.
Absolutely.
That is priceless. And I don't care what's on the line. I will never, not even an inch. Like I'm at a point in my life, frankly, literally, I was at a football game here a few months ago. At my son's football game. And we had these tickets that were like $10 and they didn't scan or whatever. And someone said, I'll just text them to your boys. You already bought them. I'm like, nope. I'm buying them new tickets. I'm not doing that. Like, before it'd be like, oh, what's the big deal? No one's going to know. But it's like, no, I know. Like, God knows. Like, there's no running. I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not going to do that, So.
And it's funny because it starts with the little things, They're little tiny things. Why do you think it is that we have a hard time telling the truth to ourselves? I mean, you're working with a lot of guys.
Yeah, I think it's because it's hard.
Why though?
Well, because it shows
vulnerability.
Vulnerability. That's part of it. But like even my ticket example, it's like, well, I want to save $10. Like or whatever it happens to be. I'm like, well, yeah, let's do that. I mean, we kind of excuse little things like, oh, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. But you're right. It just kind of builds up with time. I just feel like the truth is, I think we tell ourselves a story so much that we rationalize it that we don't even see that we're lying to ourselves.
Right.
That was the biggest thing. Is like, where am I really? Like, I'm so convinced. I've told myself this story that I'm like actually in alignment, telling the truth, until something ruptures, and then it's not only the pain of whatever the rupture happens to be, it's the pain of realizing that what I've been telling myself this entire time is a lie.
Right.
And that's the pain that people frankly can't face or aren't willing to face. That's why you said earlier, it's like the 30 best days, worst days of your life. At the end of the day, we can go through tremendous trials and difficulties. Take something as common as divorce. Like someone can go through, I wouldn't wish divorce on my worst enemy, but how many people do we know that have been divorced for 10, 15, 20 years and can't even be in the same room with the other person because they have so much animosity and they're in that, they're stuck in that because they've chosen, it's become such a part of their story. They've told themselves so many things versus somebody else that went through the exact same thing, but they're thriving and they can look back at their co-parent of their ex and be like, there's so much love and great. Like, we're great. Like, why can one person thrive and the other one not?
Yeah.
And to me, it's a choice. And a lot of it is just taking radical accountability. And all of a sudden, if they have to me, it's tied to accountability. Because if I have to be accountable, that means I played, in this example, divorce, that means I played a role in this. Well, that hasn't been my story. No, I've never told anyone that. And that's a function of my worth. I mean, there's all these subconscious things tied to it. At the end
you
of the
take
day,
that personal accountability and responsibility, and it's a whole new world.
And as I've been in this space for a while now, I'm realizing like how many people aren't, and it's shocking that I didn't even see it, and so I'm just like, this is interesting, and I can reflect, I can ask questions. The guys I work, and some of them, they figure it out, but I have some guys I work with that frankly, it's like and I can't force them. They have to kind of get there on their own.
Yeah.
But yet the lies, if you will, or the stories they're telling themselves aren't serving them. And at some point they'll either choose or not, you know?
And I liked how you called them pebbles. I call them little slivers.
Yeah.
You get a little sliver in your soul. At the end of my season for that period of time, I had a 2x4. It started as a little sliver and then you make little, and pretty soon and if you don't get a sliver completely out, what happens? We've all got slivers. You work on it, and you see the sliver come out, and you're going, "Oh, I got it," but it's still red and it's still festering, right? Why? Because you haven't got the whole thing out. You haven't really cleansed and got that last little teeny bit. And that's the thing with choices. That's the thing with full surrender. How purifying it is, and how much it does open up your life and your heart and your mind to new beginnings, period.
Yeah, and I also believe, like your example, right, where you finally surrendered, started to take accountability, make the changes. There's people that let's say went through something similar to you that all of a sudden, let's take alcohol. I'm not going to drink anymore. Okay, so they're healthier now. They're doing this stuff, but they haven't owned all the secrets and everything. That energy's still attached to it. You can't, and it's just like, well, if I shift this, then I don't need to worry about it and address it. And what I've learned, you cannot outrun the truth. It might not catch up with you in a week, or it could be years, it could be decades. But
it's still in that backpack.
Yeah, and you cannot outrun it until you speak it. Like I am rooted in that belief, and I've just seen it in my own life and other people's lives, and the truth sets you free, but it will always catch up with you.
Yeah.
Always.
It's a irrefutable law. It's going to happen. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Irrevocable choices, or choices have irrevocable consequences. And you can't massage it, skate around it, hope for something different. The choice that you make has a consequence. The choice that you make has a blessing.
So of all the pain and all the difficult hardships, the lifestyle changes, divorce, financial, all of it, would you take it back if you go back today? And not like, do you see those as like very pivotal points? You're like, gosh, I mean, of course, no one wants to go through pain, but when you look back on that, like, do you find gratitude in it?
Oh, yeah, I give thanks to my Father in heaven for putting me through those things and bringing me out the other side, because it could have been a whole different outcome for me. Because when we create chaos in our lives by the choices that we make, we can allow it to crush us. So why suicide's so high. Or we can allow it to create us. And I believe in the saying, amor fati, which means embrace your fate. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it is for our benefit. And so I'm grateful. 22 months ago, I married a beautiful woman. We're married. We went to high school together. She wanted to pick my brain on dating, and she had seen my TEDx talk, and she said, he's a great guy, but I don't want to date him because of what he's gone through. And as we got talking and she read a few books, she loosened up on that and said, you know what? What you've gone through has made you the man who you are today. And I'm not perfect by any means, but I believe in progress versus perfection now. So to your point, I wouldn't take any of it back because I have more empathy. I've helped more people from my life's experiences, and I've been able to connect heart to heart, spirit to spirit, soul to soul, and I think that's what we're here for, aren't we? In life is to help our brother. When I saw your post on social media, I didn't know you. Yeah. We'd never talked.
We never
right?
talked. No,
you were a competitor of mine.
Yep.
I remember seeing your name sometimes, going, I don't know how that guy got to be so big in this business, but he's awesome, you know. And sometimes I'd find out a client was dealing with you, and I'm like, and then I saw that vulnerability in that post that you made, dude, and that was how we connected.
Yeah.
And that's how we connect in life. We connect from the valleys of our lives. So if we don't open up and become vulnerable, and we miss that connection with human beings. And that is such a powerful thing. I think that connection is the antidote for addiction in my case. Connecting with the right people, places, things, choices, alignment. And it's been great, man. I have a tendency to kind of ramble.
No, dude, you're not rambling. We could go. There's just so many things that we're in line with. We can go on this.
When we're feeling it, yeah.
We can go on this for hours.
Isn't it funny? We probably wouldn't have met had you not gotten into your valley. Really, I mean, think about it. And I don't believe that there's any consequences. You blessed my life. I remember seeing that post, and I'm thinking, this guy is real. He's vulnerable. He's starting the humbling process, the surrendering process. I'm going to reach out and say, bro.
No, dude, that meant a lot.
I'm here, man.
Yeah.
You don't know me, but I'm here.
No, that means a lot. Yeah, it's fascinating. And that experience is like, I was sharing earlier, it's like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, there's actually something to this. And I think that's actually one of the greatest gifts I have to offer men, is because I've literally experienced these.
That's right.
So much chaos, if you will, literally in every pillar of my life.
That's right.
So I can connect in their pain.
Yeah.
And they can be seen. And that's where empathy is like, obviously circumstances for each person's are always different, unique, but there's themes and things that people go through, and the emotions that are attached to all of these, at the time, horrific, difficult situations or experiences are the same.
Yeah.
And I agree with what you said, is like, I believe what connects us more really are the challenges, the limiting beliefs, all the shortcomings. We all have them.
Yeah.
And when you create a safe space in an environment to be like, hey, it's okay that you're not okay. It's okay that you're feeling this way. We've identified this. Now, what do we do about it?
Yeah.
And my big thing that I work with men is like, what's your story you're telling yourself? Because everything's rooted in a story. When the example I gave earlier about the gentleman that I tried to buy his company 10 years previously, he said something at the time, and I'll never forget what he said. And I was not in this headspace today. He goes, how cool is it that you get to start over at 45? Who gets a do-over at 45? Literally ecstatic about it. And I'm just thinking like, oh, I've lost millions of dollars. I mean, the pain, I'm like, now I'm 45 starting over. I should be here, and all these stories, right? But he was right. And it was
I was
this,
43.
Yeah. Okay. So it was the same, the two completely polar, views of a particular situation.
Oh, yeah.
And I've taken that and I've embodied that. There's always two sides to a coin. And it's like, and my whole thing is like, if I have any anxiety or fear or angst or anything around something, I have this process I go through. I'm like, okay, what's the story attached to this? Is it real? Now it's just a story. So that means I can change the story.
Yeah.
So I can change the story once I get my thoughts aligned and then actually do the action and lean into it. I mean, my tagline is freedom's in the fire.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that like everything we want's on the other side of fear. The freedom that we want that we're seeking, the inner peace, right, requires sometimes taking accountability, telling the truth. Well, the pain of that's the fire. But like everything we want's on the other side of that.
Absolutely.
Or the door we're so focused on a particular outcome, and then that door shuts, and we're trying to still open the door. We can't handle the doors closed, but what we can't see is there's 10 other doors that open for us that are even better than that door.
Yeah.
And again, it's constant surrender and acceptance and, believing that life is happening for us, not to us. And
That's so powerful.
And I've learned to kind of lean into where, not that I'm like wanting pain or wanting to be scared. I don't. But when it shows up and it's there,
You know how to handle it now.
I have tools and I can work through it.
Yeah.
And it's more, to me, it's like fear is a calling. I say it all the time. Like if I'm scared of something, of course I don't want to go jump off a building without a parachute, but when it comes to making decisions or having a conversation or leaning into something that's going to put me out there where there could be fear of failure or people's opinions, like that's actually the universe's way of saying, go
for it.
Go.
Yep.
So where can our listeners learn more about you, Curtis, and follow you?
Oh man. You can look on YouTube, a lot of my podcasts and, my TED Talk is on there.
Put a link
Again, it was the first time that I had given that TED Talk.
No, it's great. In the show notes too, we'll put a link to the TED Talk so people can
access it. And it kind of gives you a little more background to my story. But connect with me on Facebook or any of the socials.
What's your social handle?
Facebook?
Yeah,
or
both. Facebook.
Curtis G. Marsh, and then Capital Growth Management, and then LinkedIn is Curtis G. Marsh as well.
Okay. Dude, I
use that initial. That's my dad's middle name.
No,
that's great. My dad's name, Gary.
No, Curtis,
So,
honestly, it's an honor and a pleasure.
here,
And just, I'm so grateful that you reached out and the connection that we've had and look forward to greater connections. And you got a very powerful story. And literally what you just talked about and shared is really, it's almost a perfect example of what with Burn Up and this podcast and my platform is just like, again, be your own hero. We all have a hero story. Like you can be your own hero. And I truly believe that anything is possible. You can have it all. The money, the relationship, the body, everything. The only difference between somebody that has it, in quotes, and doesn't is that they're willing to do something that someone else isn't willing to do. And the pathway to get that requires radical honesty, accountability, surrender. So, brother, thank you so much.